And from New York, Fox News contributor Lisa Booth. Lisa, hi, nice to see you. I'm going to start with you to make you feel welcome, bring you in there. You're not around the table, you're over in New York. I know. Well, we'll see you next week in New York. I'll have something on that a bit later in the show. But I just wanted to get your general reactions. Again, it's been a really, really tough week in America, not just with the shooting, but obviously with those threatened packages, the other shooting. It's been a tough week. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think it's absolutely heartbreaking, and particularly the synagogue shooting. I just think it takes a specific kind of evil to attack and to try to kill people, to actually kill people in a place of worship. A house of worship is supposed to be a refuge from the rest of the world, and so I think it just takes a special kind of person. This man is facing a federal hate crime investigation. It is said that before he shot these poor people, he said all Jews must die. And I believe what the ambassador said, of anyone that traffics in anti-Semitism and this hate must be universally condemned, whether it's the David Dukes of the world or the Louis Farrakhans. They have to be condemned. There is no place in society, there's no place in America for that kind of hatred. And so my heart breaks for those families who lost loved ones, and just praying for them, and as we all should.
I think that's right. We all feel like that, Governor.
Absolutely. And, so appalling, so unacceptable what we have seen in this last week. And, so much of that hate that is targeted towards our Jewish community it's based on fear and envy, because the enemies can't handle the fact that Israel is so successful, independent, resilient. And, that's the enemy's problem, that they just can't handle it. So the rest of us, and there are more of us than there are of them, we had better stand up and stand strong in unity on behalf of our Jewish community and our friends in Israel, and not put up with what we have just seen.
I completely agree. And that's, by the way, that's another reason why I find this, this association of any of this with President Trump just ridiculous, because he would totally share those sentiments. I mean, incredibly strong supporter of not just Israel from a policy point of view, but personally. Anyway,
well, I mean, there's so many things about the governor that I love in terms of her policy and her forward thinking. And a lot of my book is based on stuff that the governor was talking about 10 years ago.
Yes.
But what I've heard her speak about Israel, I echo her comments about the protection of Israel as a symbol of individual liberty in the world. Because at the end of the day, if you believe in Western values and you believe in the Western civilization, it's a responsible agent of the government that has to protect the minority and has to protect the most vulnerable minorities. And so I thought the speech yesterday was fantastic. I had an opportunity to talk to the president this morning, and he said, hey, I gave this speech. Do you think the mainstream media will give me credit for the speech, or will they play the speech out there? And of course they didn't. And so I applaud you tonight and the ambassador for really telling it like it is. The president is a strident protector of the state of Israel and a strident protector of individual liberty and the Jewish people. And so we have to stand up and have to speak very loudly.
Yes. Well, by the way, I do appreciate you take this show seriously enough, Anthony, that you get proper training from a master communicator before you come on and get briefed by the president.
Well, let me tell you something. Some of those briefings have been nasty where he's yelling at me, telling me I'm not doing the right thing on TV. He's the best media coach in civilization.
Right. We'll get to some of that later. Look, as we've touched on earlier, the politics is here. It's been there right from the beginning. Ever since this sequence of events was happening last week with the packages and the shooting and so on. The president just out with a tweet, actually, engaging in some of that. He's laying blame, as he often does, on the fake news media and so on. But he's responding to something that started within hours of the shooting taking place. I couldn't quite believe. Watch what Tom Steyer said this morning about all this.
His response to the tragedy was appropriate, but there's something much bigger than that going on here, which is the atmosphere that he's created and that the Republican Party has created in terms of political violence. And I think if you look across the political scene, what you see is routine, systematic lawlessness, an attempt to break small d democratic norms in pursuit of victory at all costs.
It's just unbelievable. He's talking about the president promoting political violence. Let's just look and remind ourselves, by the way, at some Democratic politicians and what they've said in this area. Let's have a look.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
Please don't just come here today and then go home. Go to the Hill today. Get up and please get up in the face of some Congress people.
And then, that's the politicians. And then you've got their supporters, the kind of cultural leaders, if you like, of the Democratic Party. And again, what have they been saying in the general category of political violence? Let's have a look at that.
Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right. Yes. I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
And then on top of that, I mean, we just go on and on. You've got Kathy Griffin with that Shakespeare in the Park play where they're acting out the stabbing of President Trump. The New York Times just this week with some short story thing about assassinating President Trump. I mean, just on and on it goes. Snoop Dogg, great example. I mean, horrific example, but just on and on it goes. I mean, and they're the ones that are saying that the president is to blame for this culture.
Right. Well, thank the Lord, Americans have awakened to that hypocrisy, to the double standards that are spewed by so much of the mainstream media, so much of the left. I remember the first time that I heard publicly President Obama proclaim that you were to bring a gun to a knife fight. President Obama saying he couldn't wait to get out there and kick somebody's ASS because they screwed up on an infrastructure project. I remember him with such insensitivity mocking children with special needs on late night TV. Where was the outcry during any of that? Did you see conservatives freak out and go out and vandalize communities and protest what was going on? And no, we wanted to civilly change that discourse.
Yes.
Maturely, professionally, diplomatically change the debate in the country. We don't see any of that civility going on now on the other side.
And she says, Hillary Clinton, you can't be civil. And Lisa, it's not just the words, it's the actions. I mean, we've seen, threatening packages sent to your point, to the governor's point, Don Jr. and his family, Susan Collins after the Kavanaugh vote, of course Steve Scalise, but none of that led to accusations that the Democrats are responsible for this culture of violence.
No, and we were told by the media, particularly after the Steve Scalise shooting, that there needs to be unity, and it was hardly mentioned at the fact that the shooter was a Democrat. But look, looking specifically at the synagogue shooting, I think people forget and often don't talk about the fact that President Trump's daughter is Jewish. His son-in-law is Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. I think he has a special place in his heart for the Jewish community, and you see that in his policies, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, being the first sitting president to visit the Western Wall. You also look, it's been reported that the shooter actually didn't like President Trump because he felt that he wasn't an anti-Semite. So all of this gets lost in the media when they have a narrative that they're trying to drive, and that narrative is always anti-Trump. I mean, that's the only thing that's been consistent about their reporting, is that it is all negative towards the president.
Yeah, it really is. Look, we've got to squeeze in a break.